Hi, in this video we'll be looking at composition. The simple example that we looked at before with the address and the person classes, that's what we're going to be creating right now. So let's begin by creating the address class. So usually address comes with two lines for street and then city, state and zip code. Okay, just for simplicity's sake, let's make all of these as string variables. Private string, public string, address line 1. So anytime we use properties, this is an auto-implemented property, we want to name that as having proper case. So how many fields do we have? Address line 1, address line 2, city, state, zip code. Okay, so these are the fields we care about. You don't have to even have a constructor. If you don't care about it, you don't have to create a constructor. So this helps. So if you have like a permanent address and a home address and a shipping address and like a guardian address or whatever it is, you just don't want to keep writing this code again and again. So you create the object once and then you reuse the object. Let us say that this is a really simple object, right? So let's go and test this out. Nothing will happen, right? We just want to make sure that let's create an output. Okay, let's create a method called output, public void output. Oh, but maybe we can say display. So all it would do, it's like the intro method, right? So you just console dot write line in each and every property. So you can test it easily. So address line 1, city, state. Make sure that all of this have the right names, like your properties. So if you have a typo, it's going to give you a hard time. Okay, so that's all it's going to. We are not doing any validation, right? So let's say address addr1 equal to new address. Okay. Now we are just going to give it some data. Whatever, some data. So we have created data. Now we want to know if it works. So we can say address1.display. We can call that method. Okay, now let's see the output. So it automatically said 1234 Main Street. That's the address, right? So address.display gives you all of that information. So what does that mean? Whatever information we set got set properly. So there is no problem. Okay, so any time you got the first address right here. So we got address 1. So if you want to do address 2, this is your permanent address, shipping address, whatever it is. You don't have to create all these individually. They all come as a package for you, right? So every time you're not thinking about all the fields you need, all the validations you need for that particular class called address. Rather, you are reusing all the content. So that is where composition comes in, okay? So creating the class, the advantage is that you don't have to repeat yourself again and again. It's pretty easy and straightforward. So let me just write one more line here. Like a title of some sort. Here's the address. Okay, so now Let's add some validation. So let's say the zip code has to be 5 characters, state has to be 2 characters long. Yeah, those are good validations. So this cannot be more than 5 characters. So that is the validation. So if you are going to add validation, it is not an auto implemented property anymore. Okay, what does that mean? So you have to have a private variable, private string, zip code. This will be the back end information where we are trying to copy the value. We are wrapping this guy with this guy. Okay, so you need the getter and setter, but you're going to manage it. So this is what we saw last week. So that's the getter and then the setter. So remember, before anyone tries to set any value, it is going to be stored in something called as value, a variable called value. So what you have to remember is all of your validations have to happen on value and not on zip code. So if value dot length less than or equal to 5, zip code equal to value. Otherwise, we won't copy the value. Okay. So let's run that. Well, our data didn't change. So what if I change the data? So let me just repeat this line. I just go change this to 99999 whatever. Then I try to display. What happens now? First time it produced me the output. Second time it told me invalid length. So this change was never attached to this change was never made. So my old value of 44143 still remains in my zip code. Okay, so it threw away the value that I gave because the length was invalid. So here is a point I want to make. When you write code, for every single line of code you write, you have to test it. And all of your test conditions have to be in this main method. That is where you're calling and checking and testing and everything. So just make sure you do that. Okay, so, and then we said one more validation is going to be for state code. Again, if you're going to make the state code as not auto-implemented, so first you have to create a private variable. So we have to write the get and set. Okay. So anytime anyone gives you a value, so you're going to check the length. If value dot length. So this is important. It's not state dot length, it's value dot length, because anytime somebody is trying to make an assignment, temporarily the value gets stored in that content. New content will be stored in a temporary holder called value. So this has to be equal to 2. Okay, 2-digit state code. Then what do we do? If it is all good, then we say state equal to value. Okay, otherwise we write an error message. So that is the set validation. For the get validation, we can convert it to uppercase. Okay, so we will say return. Here it is not value, no more value. In the get, there is no value. In the set only, we use the value. So here you say state dot to upper. So that's what we are returning. So now let's go. I made this Ohio, right? If I make it, oh. The reason why we are getting this error is because if you see here, state code is O. So let's change this back to Ohio. Okay. and then put the state code over here. Now let me show you what happens. So first time, because it's Ohio, it's all good. Second time, during the get, we got this error. So it should be only 2 characters long. So it never made the change. Okay. So if you already have data, you don't have any problem. But if there is no data, because we set this to O, it is going to say, I cannot convert a blank to uppercase. Okay. So that's what's happening here. So that is part of error handling. So I can show you how to do it. You don't have to do it. So there is a way to verify if the state is null or empty. So for that you can use a string method, string dot is null or empty. So you could use this method to see if there is anything in the string. If there is not, if it is not null or empty, then we want to return the upper. Else we can just return an empty string. So you could just say like this, or you could just say string dot empty. So you're just saying, hey, there is nothing there. I'm just returning that. No big deal. Okay. So this is an available method from the string class that we have. This is a static method. That's why we are calling it as string dot null or empty. So all we are saying is the upper method will not work if you have your state to be completely empty. So if you want to do the conversion, only do it when there is some content. So this is part of error handling. So the error is because I am not even sending any string here. We have to send the state code. If the state code is null or empty, then we just like drop the value. Otherwise we send an uppercase. So even if you say Ohio as or Arizona here as lowercase, it will convert that to uppercase. See here? Okay, but if you give an invalid data like that, it'll drop that value. See, there is no state code here. No state code here. And you're getting the error saying state code has to be 2 characters long. Okay, so these are validations. So the point of this whole exercise is to show you we have an address class and we've written the address class. Now, how do we use it in the person class? Okay, person class is going to have string. Okay, I'm going to copy some of the code that I already have written just to save some time here. And I'll like delete the code that we really don't need. So give me a second here. See, we got all these, oh, sorry. Okay. And then we'll add our using statement up top here. So see, I got all my first name, last name, date of birth, social security, email, phone number, right? So these are all good. Let's not care about our constructor here for the time being. Okay, so here is okay. So what I have here is I have first name, last name, date of birth, social security, email, phone number. So these are all the fields I have for my person. So, and if you see, these are all auto-implemented properties. Okay, now, if you remember from our whiteboard, this person does not only have first name, last name, date of birth, social security, email, and phone number, they also have an address. So we, instead of saying public what do we want to like call our particular address, right? So public So our address is going to be of the type address. So that is going to be our object. So inside the person class, I am declaring an object. Okay. So that is the important part. So in the intro, I can just say, okay. So this person, let's just make him public. So this guy, the address, otherwise we can access it. So all we are doing is inside we can directly say permanent address.display to the intro method. So you can call all the methods of this address from the person class because we have an object. Okay. So let's look at the constructor now. So this is an object, which means it has to be declared, right? So let's write one public, one constructor. And this constructor, if not anything, it is going to make this as a new object. Permanent address equal to new address object. So if not anything, at least this has to be defined for the rest of the code to work. Okay. So you have to declare, you have declared the variable. Now you are creating the actual object of the type address, and then you are actually calling the method of that object. If somebody gives you the address, you can actually add the address and all that. So let's try it here. So for example, here we have the person class, person p1 equal to new person, p1 dot first name, p1 dot last name, p1 dot permanent address dot address line 1 equal to, you can just say 1 2 3 4 main street, p1 dot permanent address dot city, then we can say p1 dot intro. So what's happening here? Hello, my name is John Smith, and here's the address. So this is, so let's comment out all this code so it doesn't cause any confusion. So first we tested the address class, and now we are testing the person class. So here, so John Smith comes from the intro method, and then because automatically, because we said this is an address, we are getting all of the functionality. So because this is an object, you would say this object dot. Because this is an object, you're saying it's object dot. So this is person, permanent address, address line 1. Person, permanent address, address line 2. So on and so forth. Okay, so this is called as composition. So one object has another object inside it. So P1 has permanent address, which has all those fields. Okay, the advantages, all the validations, right? So this, whatever it said, like you can't have the number to be like long like that, or this to be all this, right? So when you run this, it will automatically do those validations. See, because every single place you're calling address, you don't have to do validation. This address class does all the validation for you. So it's a freebie for you. See how it says invalid length and all that, and then it dropped those two values because they are bad. So you get all of those free. Okay, but just by reusing the code. So that is the advantage. And also you got to use the display method from inside the intro method. From intro method, I call the display method. sorry. Inside the intro method of the person class, I'm calling the display method of the permanent address. The only tripping point is to remember this. You have to declare the address, first of all, and make it public. Second thing is you have to like create an object of that type, because only the object you're holding inside. This is an object, not a class. This is a class. This is an object. Blueprint, implementation. So this is important for composition. This is what causes the composition. Okay. So this is the example for the composition with the person class and the address class. Okay. So in the next video, I'll be showing you how we can implement inheritance. See you then.